You're not special because you quit your 9 to 5 to build your brand on TikTok while drop shipping dog mugs or trading crypto with money you don't have. You're not an entrepreneur because you spent 3 hours in Canva designing a logo and called yourself the next Elon Musk. Let's get real. Most self-proclaimed visionaries are just noise with a ring light. You're following the same tired path, using the same tools, with the same mindset as everyone else. That's not innovation. That's herd mentality in a hoodie. You want to build the future? You can't copy-paste your way to disruption. If your grand business plan is to dominate a niche by doing what's already been done, but with more hashtags and a sleeker interface, I've got news for you. You're not building the future. You're just adding more clutter to the present. If your startup pitch sounds like this, we're like Uber, but for freelance pet photographers, you need to sit down, shut up, and start over. Because real innovation, the kind that turns the world upside down, doesn't look like mimicry. It looks like madness until it works. And that's exactly what Peter Thiel is here to slap you in the face with. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Yes, the guy who co-founded PayPal and made a boatload investing in Facebook before Zuckerberg even had his first hoodie, isn't just another feel-good startup guide. It's a reality check. A hand grenade lobbed directly into the echo chamber of Silicon Valley copycats and idea guys who've never built a damn thing. Thiel, alongside student-turned-co-author Blake Masters, wrote this book to expose the truth about what it really takes to create something radically new. Something that jumps from 0 to 1 instead of stumbling from 1 to N. It's about innovation, not iteration. It's not about scaling what's already out there. It's about carving out new space, where you don't just play the game, you invent it. Let me be clear, 0 to 1 isn't for entrepreneurs. It's for people who want to punch mediocrity in the face and build something that matters. The kind of people who don't just disrupt industries, they obliterate them and rebuild them from scratch. Disclaimer, this video is for educational and transformative purposes under the Fair Use Act. We're breaking this down to analyze, critique, comment, and give context, not to replace or duplicate the book. If you're just looking to plagiarize and pretend you read it, go back to your hustle Twitter thread. Now, before we jump into the chapters, here's the big idea. Peter Thiel believes that the next big thing will not be a better app or a marginally improved food delivery service. The next big thing will be something nobody else saw coming because it will break all the rules. And if you're not thinking for yourself, you're part of the noise, not the signal. In this video, we'll go chapter by chapter, cracking knuckles and crushing comfort zones. We'll call out the lies, expose the myths, and arm you with the kind of truth that burns. Ready? Let's do this. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. Build the future, don't copy the past. If you're waiting for life to just work out, you might as well tattoo "kick me" on your forehead. There's a dangerous kind of delusion out there, one that cloaks itself in buzzwords like grind, flexibility, and trusting the process. It's the belief that if you just hustle hard enough, stumble around long enough, and copy enough people, something good will eventually happen. That's not strategy. That's survival mode wrapped in startup theater. You're not building the future if you're clinging to chaos and hoping it magically produces clarity. You're just a tourist in your own potential, and Peter Thiel is here to make you uncomfortable about it. Let's rip the band-aid off early. Most people are obsessed with going from 1 to N. You know what that is? Copying, mimicking, cloning. You're not creating anything new, you're mass-producing mediocrity. Want proof? Look at how many damn to-do list apps we have, or fitness trackers, or food delivery startups that swear they're different because we also do meal planning. No, you're just more of the same. Thiel's idea is brutal in its elegance. True progress isn't going from 1 to many, it's going from nothing to something. That's 0 to 1. That's what building the future actually means. If what you're doing already exists in some form, then congratulations. You're not innovating, you're decorating. You can either repeat what's been done or try something so original it might not work the first time. One of those paths builds monopolies, the other builds more noise. And if your grand vision ends with, "and then we'll pivot," you're not a visionary, you're indecisive. The brutal truth is this: Our obsession with copying has become a mental virus. You've been sold the idea that success is a lottery, that if you buy enough tickets, startup attempts, half-baked ideas, LinkedIn posts with hashtag #founderlife, eventually one will win. But that's loser logic. That's what you tell yourself when you're afraid of taking responsibility for the future. Thiel drops the hammer on that mindset. You are not a lottery ticket, period. If you believe you are, you've already surrendered. That's not humility. That's intellectual cowardice dressed up as realism. Think about the people who've truly changed the game. Not influencers, not day traders, not NFT bros, but builders. The Elon Musks, the Steve Jobses, the real ones. You think they flipped a coin and hoped for heads? Hell no. They made a plan. They had a vision so clear it looked like insanity to everyone else. You know why the future feels like it's stalled? Because most people aren't even trying to shape it. They're just riding the wave and praying it doesn't crash. It's why we're still obsessed with best practices, what worked before, and endless iterations. Safe, predictable, insanely boring. Meanwhile, innovation has become a buzzword because no one has the guts to do something that might actually fail. You want real failure? It's not falling short. It's never taking a real shot. Thiel doesn't say it gently. The world isn't going to move forward on its own. Progress isn't automatic. The default is stagnation. And the only antidote is ambition tied to concrete vision. That means making plans. Actual plans. Not decks filled with vague metrics or we're still figuring things out. If your startup can't describe the future it's building, then it's not building anything. It's faking productivity until the money runs out. Here's where it gets even harder to swallow. Our entire culture has made planning look arrogant. If you say, here's exactly what I want to build and here's how I'll do it, people assume you're naive or narcissistic. Meanwhile, the ones who float around doing a little bit of everything are praised for being adaptable. No, that's not adaptability. That's fear of commitment masquerading as strategy. Definiteness, having a plan and committing to it is the rarest form of courage today. Everyone wants optionality, no one wants accountability, and that's why the future is getting duller by the day. Want to break out? Then stop playing small. Stop dressing up vagueness as flexibility. And for the love of all that's holy, stop pretending you're going to find your path through trial and error. Make a damn decision, because if you don't, someone else will. And odds are, they'll be the one building the future while you're still exploring opportunities in your LinkedIn headline. Key takeaway: you are not at the mercy of chance. If you're waiting for success to randomly bless you, you're part of the problem. The future belongs to those who are willing to envision it and then take unapologetic, calculated steps toward making it real. Favorite quote: you are not a lottery ticket. The dot-com delusion. You ever meet that guy who calls himself a serial entrepreneur, but the only thing he's ever scaled is his LinkedIn profile? The guy who says he's building something big, but hasn't even built a working website? That's the spiritual descendant of the dot-com bubble, the ghost of 1999 still haunting 2025. Let's be honest, most people in business today are just rebranded clowns from the last economic circus. You think those Instagram hustle bros selling webinars on how to launch your brand in 30 days aren't the modern day version of the dudes in the 90s who added .com to their company name to double their valuation overnight? Because they are. And the only thing they're innovating is the art of BS. What Thiel lays bare here isn't just a recap of a historical market crash, it's a psychological autopsy of what happens when hype replaces substance and the herd gets drunk on its own Kool-Aid. It's not ancient history, it's the same blueprint being followed by TikTok dropshippers and AI idea mills today. Back in the dot-com days, there was money everywhere. Literally, dudes were throwing $5 million into companies without signing a single document. Investors were high on the smell of their own optimism, and everyone started to believe that spending money with no clear plan was visionary. Thiel recalls how people IPO'd from their living rooms and planned billion-dollar empires without even having a product. Sound familiar? It should. We're still doing it, just with shinier pitch decks and better buzzwords. But here's the real punch. Irrationality was rational. That's the scary part. When the music is loud enough, no one questions who's DJing. People weren't just ignoring risk, they were applauding it. That kind of euphoria only ends one way, with a crash loud enough to humble the entire valley. And when it crashed, everyone acted like they were shocked. But deep down, they knew the game was rigged from the start. The lessons that came out of that crash were supposed to be about humility, prudence, and caution. But Thiel argues that those lessons were just another overreaction. Post-crash orthodoxy became, don't plan too far ahead, stay lean, keep your expectations low, copy proven models, and if your product needs salespeople, it's trash. In other words, be small, vague, and afraid. And here's the kicker, that thinking is still poisoning the startup world today. People act like having a 5-year plan is narcissistic. Like if you know what you want to build, you must be arrogant. But let me ask you, when did clarity become a character flaw? When did commitment become taboo? The obsession with being lean has metastasized into a fear of decisiveness. We've got founders treating planning like it's radioactive waste, when in reality, the lack of it is what's killing their startups. Thiel dismantles this myth and flips it. He says, screw being vague, screw the religion of iteration. A bad plan is better than no plan, because at least a bad plan can evolve. Vagueness can't scale, and pivoting is just code for flailing when you don't know what the hell you're doing. But there's a deeper lesson here, one that most people miss entirely. The market doesn't reward balance, it rewards extremes. The power law isn't just a mathematical concept, it's reality. A handful of companies will generate the vast majority of returns, just like a few people capture most attention, wealth, and influence. It's not fair, but it's true. If you're building something and expecting linear returns, you're setting yourself up to be roadkill. Real value comes from things that scale exponentially. And here's the part that should make most startup founders tremble. Unless your idea has the potential to return the entire value of a venture fund, it's probably not even worth funding. That's how skewed the power law is. That's how high the bar actually is. And most people are walking under it without even noticing. Thiel's own experience at Founders Fund proves it. Facebook returned more than every other investment in their 2005 fund combined. Palantir, number 2, everything else, nice but irrelevant in comparison. If your startup isn't aiming to be a god-tier outlier, you're wasting everyone's time, including your own. And you know what's even more dangerous than failure? Mediocrity disguised as progress. That's what most of these okay startups are. They don't crash hard enough to draw attention, but they don't grow fast enough to matter. They're zombie companies, walking dead with a burn rate. The future isn't built on safe bets. It's built on dangerous visions backed by ruthless execution. If you're not trying to build the next big monopoly, you're not trying at all. You're just freelancing your dreams until your runway evaporates. So stop pretending like you're playing the long game if you don't even have a destination. Stop claiming you're a visionary when all you're doing is remixing other people's ideas. Be honest. Are you building something that changes the game, or just rearranging the furniture in someone else's house? Because here's the raw truth. The crash of 2000 didn't kill the dream. It just scared people into dreaming smaller. But if we want to build the future, we need to stop playing it safe and start acting like we actually believe in what we're building. Key takeaway. The biggest risk isn't taking a bold bet. It's following conventional wisdom off a cliff. Forget lean. Forget safe. If you're not building something with exponential potential, you're not building anything at all. Favorite quote, the most contrarian thing of all is not to oppose the crowd, but to think for yourself. Peter Thiel. Monopolies versus competition. If you think competition is healthy, you've been lied to since kindergarten. Somewhere between gold stars and college applications, you were trained to believe that success is a prize handed out to the best among many. Not the only one who dared to step into a space nobody else had the balls to enter. Let me say it straight, competition is for losers. And if that sentence offends you, then congratulations. You've spent too long playing a rigged game with rules you didn't write. You've been brainwashed, made to believe that if you just outwork, outgrind, or outmarket the guy next to you, somehow the universe will throw you a bone. But what no one tells you is this: the person you're competing with probably doesn't even know you exist. And if they do, they don't care, because they're doing the exact same thing you are, trying to win a game with 1,000 players and one trophy. Peter Thiel is one of the few who doesn't just see through the competition cult, he exposes it like a magician who's done with the trick. His argument? Real businesses don't fight for scraps. They invent a new table and sit alone at it. All successful companies are different, not better, different, not faster, not leaner, not slightly more optimized, fundamentally, structurally, purposefully different, and that difference is what lets them dominate a space without looking over their shoulder every 5 seconds. Thiel calls it what it is: monopoly. And yeah, that word makes economists and armchair socialists twitch, but that's because they've confused monopoly with tyranny. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud: monopolies aren't evil by default. In fact, the best ones are the engines of progress. You know why Google's engineers can work on sci-fi projects like AI, self-driving cars, or curing death? Because they're not spending 16 hours a day price matching Bing. If your business lives in a market where the only way to survive is to squeeze your workers and race to the bottom, guess what? That's not a business. That's an arms race where no one wins and everyone's miserable. Ask the airline industry. Billions in revenue, pennies in profit, literal pennies. Meanwhile, Google makes less value, but captures more than 100 times the profit margin. Why? Because it owns its category. You're not building value unless you're capturing it. That's the brutal wake-up call. You can feed 1 million people, change 1 million lives, make the world a better place, and still go bankrupt because you didn't build something people couldn't get anywhere else. That's the difference between noble intentions and intelligent execution. But here's the part that stings the most. Most of you aren't building monopolies. You're lying to yourself about your competition. You open a new taco joint and tell yourself no one else serves authentic tacos like you do. You create an app for productivity and say, "We're totally different from Notion, trust me." You're not. You're drowning in a red ocean with sharks fatter than you'll ever be. Thiel explains how monopolists lie to look small and competitors lie to look unique. Google won't admit it's a monopoly. It says it's just a little fish in the vast ocean of global advertising. That's like LeBron James saying he's just another guy on the basketball court. Cute. Meanwhile, your average startup pretends it's pioneering a new hyperlocal AI-driven social commerce engine, when in reality, it's an Etsy knockoff with a chat function. People get so hypnotized by the idea of beating someone else, they forget that there's another option: building something so good no one can touch it. Not because you outplayed them, but because you weren't even in the same damn game. That's the beauty of monopoly. You don't have to fight for attention, you own the spotlight. But no, we've been raised in the religion of competition. Schools pit you against classmates. Jobs dangle promotions like carrots, and the media celebrates every slugfest like it's the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the smartest people quietly build monopoly-level companies while everyone else punches each other in the face for clout. You don't win by fighting harder, you win by thinking deeper, you win by escaping the game, not mastering it. So here's the real test. Can you name the one thing your company does that no one else can? The one problem you solve that no one else even sees as a problem yet? If you can't, you're not a monopoly. You're a commodity with a brand kit. And don't confuse branding with substance. Do one thing isn't just cute advice, it's survival. Thiel's strategy at PayPal was to give every person one unique responsibility, one thing, because the second you blur roles, people start stepping on each other's toes. Conflict becomes culture. And nothing kills a startup faster than internal politics disguised as collaboration. That's why Thiel says to hire missionaries, not mercenaries. You don't need people who want a job. You need people who want to build this thing and nothing else. You can teach skills. You can't teach obsession. And don't think for a second that competition makes you stronger. That's romanticized garbage. Competition burns your time, drains your cash, and steals your clarity. It makes you reactive instead of proactive. You don't become a visionary by watching your rivals' every move. You become a visionary by ignoring the noise and building something they can't copy. Here's the brutal irony. The fiercest competition happens between people who are basically the same. Microsoft and Google tore each other apart trying to one-up each other in every category. And while they were doing that, Apple quietly ate their lunch. War makes you predictable. Obsession with rivals makes you weak. So if you're in business and all you can think about is how to beat someone else, newsflash, they've already beaten you. Because they're living rent-free in your head, you're reacting, they're creating. Think bigger, be better, build the thing no one else sees coming. Key takeaway, the most successful companies don't compete. They escape competition entirely. Don't play harder in a crowded game. Invent your own game and win by default. Favorite quote, all happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. Peter Thiel. Secrets and foundations. You're not going to build the next billion-dollar company by attending another damn seminar or scribbling vision statements on a whiteboard while sipping kombucha. You're not going to uncover brilliance by blending in with the rest of the echo chamber dressed in Patagonia vests and pretending to brainstorm solutions that sound like every other recycled TED Talk pitch. Here's the ugly truth. Most people aren't failing to start great businesses because they lack talent. They're failing because they don't believe the world has secrets left worth discovering. They've been fed the lie that everything valuable is already known, and the only thing left to do is optimize, iterate, and pretend that adding another layer of AI to a to-do list app is somehow revolutionary. Thiel doesn't just challenge this thinking, he demolishes it. Secrets are the atomic particles of progress, the tiny overlooked truths hiding in plain sight that, if noticed, explode into something world-changing. Airbnb, Uber, PayPal, none of these were born from groupthink. They were built on secrets. The kind of secrets only revealed to people who dare to say, everyone is wrong about this. The problem? Most of you are too scared to look. Because looking for secrets is risky. It requires doing something that terrifies 99% of the population, thinking for yourself. You've been trained to fear that. From the classroom to the boardroom, the system rewards conformity. Memorize the rules, ace the test, collect the degree, get the job. Then one day, you wake up in a startup accelerator thinking, what's my MVP? When you should be asking, what truth does no one see yet? Thiel is asking you to think dangerously, and most of you aren't ready for that. Most founders aren't building companies, they're building permission slips. They wait for the market to validate their idea before they go all in. But secrets don't come with validation. They come with silence, doubt, and isolation, until you prove them right. You want to build something iconic? Start by hunting secrets no one else is even curious about, and then, and only then, build a company around them. Because secrets aren't enough, execution matters, and that starts at the foundation. Foundations are where companies are made or murdered in slow motion. This is where Thiel introduces what he calls Thiel's Law. A startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. That means if your founding team is a hot mess of half-friends, hype merchants, and glorified co-working buddies who agree on nothing but the logo design, you're already dead. It's just going to take 18 months for the autopsy. Don't start a company with someone you wouldn't go to war with. Founders are like spouses, except divorce in startups is usually more brutal and way less fair. The wrong co-founder won't just annoy you, they'll kill your momentum, dilute your vision, and poison your team. Every disagreement, every ego contest, every late-night Slack war is a crack in your foundation, and if you wait too long to address it, it becomes structural. But people don't want to hear this. They want startup life to be a romantic comedy, not a war movie. They think vibes matter more than vision, and good culture means beanbags and open offices. Wrong. Culture is what people do when they're under pressure. It's who they blame when things go wrong. It's whether your team has loyalty to the mission or loyalty to their own LinkedIn brand. And let's not forget equity. You split it wrong in the beginning, you'll regret it forever. I don't care how egalitarian you think you are. If your weakest link owns as much of the company as your strongest contributor, you've already lit the fuse. Most startups die not from competition or lack of product market fit. They die from internal decay that started the day someone said, "Let's just split it evenly. We're all in this together." No, you're not. Someone's gonna carry the vision, someone's gonna bleed for the company, and someone's gonna coast until the checks stop coming. Equity needs to reflect reality, not idealism, and you better get that right on day one. Thiel is saying this with the quiet violence of someone who's watched too many people implode from self-inflicted wounds, and his point couldn't be clearer. If you screw up the beginning, the end is already written. The irony? Most founders obsess over everything except the beginning. They worry about scaling, marketing, investors, exits, all the sexy external stuff. But the internal, the values, the structure, the alignment, ignored. Because it's uncomfortable, because it's messy, because it forces people to have hard conversations before they feel ready. Well, guess what? The only startups that survive are the ones that get uncomfortable early. Secrets and foundations. That's where real companies start. Not in incubators, not in pitch competitions, not in the comments section of Hacker News, but in the moments where someone looks at the world, sees something invisible to everyone else and says, "Let's build something dangerous." Key takeaway: great startups are built on secrets the world hasn't yet recognized, but they only survive if their foundation is solid from day one. Think deeply, choose carefully, and for the love of progress, don't be afraid to look where no one else is willing to. Favorite quote: every great business is built around a secret that's hidden from the outside. The power of last mover advantage. Let's talk about a twisted little lie that's been sold to every founder, every startup, every wannabe business messiah on the internet. First mover advantage. It's the holy grail of hustle culture brainwashing. Be the first, be fast, beat everyone else to the punch, and you'll be sitting pretty while the latecomers pick up your crumbs. Except, no, that's nonsense. And if you actually believed it, buckle up, because you've been playing checkers in a game of 4D chess. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Being first doesn't matter if you suck. And being fast is meaningless if you burn out before you even make it to the second round. In business, being first is often just code for we didn't know what the hell we were doing. But being last, the last mover, that's where domination happens. Peter Thiel's argument isn't polite. It's not designed to boost egos or make startup bros feel good about their pitch deck. It's a straight up demolition of the idea that success belongs to the people who get there early. Let's be real. MySpace got there before Facebook, Alta Vista before Google, Friendster before anything that actually worked. Do you see a trend? The companies that matter didn't just arrive at the party, they owned the party. They rewrote the guest list, changed the music, and started charging for drinks. Why? Because they focused on building something enduring, and that doesn't happen fast. It doesn't happen with hype. It happens with ruthless clarity about long-term value. Thiel makes it brutally clear. It's not about being first, it's about being the last one standing. That's the difference between a flash-in-the-pan novelty and a monopoly. And let's be honest, most of you are too obsessed with speed and virality to even consider what your company will look like in 10 years. You're trying to get featured on Product Hunt. Thiel is asking you whether anyone will still be using your product in 2035. But here's where it gets deeper. Most businesses die because they confuse traction with sustainability. Sure, you got a spike in signups, you hit some fake-ass growth milestone, but what happens when those users churn? What happens when the next clone comes along and builds the same thing, only better? You die. You die fast, and nobody remembers your name. Thiel drops the hammer. Real value is future cash flow, not attention, not momentum, cash flow, and not just any flow, monopoly profits that you can sustain because you didn't just show up first. You showed up right. Twitter wasn't making money when it IPO'd, but the market valued it like it was printing gold. Why? Because people believed it had locked down the future of real-time news. The future was where the value lived. Compare that to a newspaper making real money. but dying, slowly and predictably, because its future was already over. The world doesn't reward pioneers, it rewards finishers. And if you want to finish on top, you don't need to sprint out of the gate. You need to pick the right race, the one nobody else sees yet, and then build a product that's so dominant it becomes the market. That's what PayPal did. They didn't try to be a payment solution for everyone. They went after eBay power sellers, the nerdy merchants who are dying for a better payment system, nail a niche so tight that it bleeds, and from there, expand outward like a virus with a vision. But what about all that startup advice about testing, iterating, shipping fast? Isn't that what everyone says? Sure, if your goal is to be forgotten. Thiel says, screw disruption. Don't come in swinging at giants like some tech world David versus Goliath fantasy. Build something so different it doesn't even register as a threat until it's too late. Amazon didn't kill bookstores by disrupting them. It made bookstores irrelevant by becoming something fundamentally new. That's last mover thinking. Build the definitive version of your product. Make it the final answer. Leave no oxygen for imitators. And here's the dagger. Most of you won't do this. You'll keep listening to the hype machine, pitching ideas that sound like warmed over tech cliches, and chasing metrics that mean nothing. You'll worship at the altar of growth hacking while your actual business quietly rots from the inside out. Because real strategy isn't sexy, it's slow, it's patient, it's focused on durability, not dopamine. Want to know if you're building something that matters? Ask yourself this: are you building to last, or are you building to exit? If the answer is exit, congrats. You're a temporary convenience, a forgettable blip. But if you're building to last, you're playing a different game entirely, the only one that matters. Key takeaway: the companies that dominate the future are the ones that act like chess masters, planning for the end game from day one. Being first is a tactic. Being the last mover is a strategy for empire. Favorite quote: you must study the end game before everything else. Man and machine. You've been lied to about technology, sold some slick Silicon Valley fairy tale that machines are coming to replace you, and the best you can hope for is to pivot into tech before the bots finish eating your job. Sound familiar? That's the paranoid soundtrack of a civilization obsessed with its own obsolescence. But Peter Thiel isn't here for your apocalyptic fantasies. He's here to slap the dystopian daydream out of your skull and show you the real path forward. Humans and machines are not competitors. They're collaborators. And the smartest companies are the ones building that partnership right now. Let's get one thing straight. If you still think we're heading toward a future where AI takes over and we all get to retire early while sipping margaritas in our VR pods, you're an idiot. Or worse, you're a lazy optimist hiding behind the myth of inevitable progress. Thiel is not amused by your techno-utopianism, and he's even less impressed with the Luddites who want to slam the brakes on all innovation just because they're scared of losing relevance. Both camps are cowards. The real builders, the ones who win, are the ones who understand that the machine is not your enemy, it's your weapon. And Thiel knows this not just in theory, he lived it at PayPal. When fraud was bleeding them for $10 million a month, their pure software solution failed. Fast. The criminals were faster, smarter, more adaptive than their code, so they built something better. A hybrid, a symbiosis between machine learning and human intuition. They called it Igor, and it worked like hell. Computers flagged suspicious activity, humans made the judgment call, and guess what? They crushed fraud, turned a profit, and built one of the most legendary fintechs of all time. That's the playbook. Not replacement, augmentation. The world's most valuable companies going forward, they won't be the ones that replace humans. They'll be the ones that amplify them. The companies that realize computers are like levers. They extend your power, but only if you actually have a direction to push in. A machine with no human input is just noise, but a machine guided by sharp human insight, that's a weapon of absolute disruption. Take Palantir. Born from the same hybrid thinking that saved PayPal, it didn't try to automate national security. It enhanced it, analysts plus algorithms, code plus context. That's how they helped take down terrorist networks, financial fraud, and even the largest child porn ring in the world. You didn't hear about that on Twitter because the real work happens in silence, but the message is clear. The future belongs to cyborg teams. Not pure code, not pure humans, but blended forces operating at 10x. But the tech world still doesn't get it. Machine learning cultists run around preaching that algorithms will replace every job from doctor to CEO. Meanwhile, the AI panic headlines feed the fear fetish of the public. Thiel calls BS on both. Computers are not smart, they're specialized. They can process data, but they can't assign meaning. They can detect a cat in a video, but they can't tell you why that cat matters. A 4-year-old has more insight than a billion-dollar server farm when it comes to context. And this matters, because the cult of big data, that more data equals more truth, is one of the most seductive lies in modern business. Big data without big thinking is just statistical noise. Thiel calls it dumb data. The real breakthroughs happen when humans ask the right questions and machines help find the patterns. Complementarity beats substitution every single time. Even LinkedIn got this right. They didn't try to replace recruiters, they supercharged them. Recruiters still assess, persuade, and connect. LinkedIn just gave them a magnifying glass and a megaphone, and that's why 97% of them use it today. Had LinkedIn tried to delete the recruiter instead of empower them, they'd be another forgotten case study in startup arrogance. This is the tragedy of most tech thinking today. It either wants machines to rule us or imagines a world where we never needed machines at all. Both are childish fantasies. The real future is partnership, and the real question is, how can we design technology to unleash deeper, weirder, more human strengths? Because here's the truth no one tells you. Humans aren't in trouble because of machines. They're in trouble because they've stopped being human enough. We're trying to act like algorithms, cold, scalable, optimized. But our real power is our messiness, our intuition, our ability to synthesize wildly different inputs into new ideas. A machine can process, it can't dream. And dreaming is your job, not optimizing. Not outsourcing your judgment to a dashboard, not abdicating your role to AI suggestions. The greatest entrepreneurs of the next decade won't be the ones who write the best code. They'll be the ones who ask the questions no code could answer, and then use machines as tools to help build those answers at scale. So stop worrying about whether a robot is coming for your job. Worry about whether you're building something worthy of having machines at your side. This isn't man versus machine, it's man with machine. That's the only side that wins. Key takeaway. Technology isn't here to replace you, it's here to amplify you. The future belongs to the humans who design tools that make other humans more powerful, not more obsolete. Favorite quote, the most valuable businesses of coming decades will be built by entrepreneurs who seek to empower people rather than try to make them obsolete. The founder's paradox. Imagine trying to build a rocket ship with people you met at a networking event over warm shrimp cocktails. That's the level of brain-dead decision-making happening in the startup world right now. People keep thinking they can slap together a dream team based on credentials, LinkedIn profiles, and some awkward small talk at a VC mixer, then wonder why the company implodes faster than a Dollar Tree drone startup. Here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud, startups are not companies. They're cults, and you don't build a cult with strangers, you build it with blood-bound conspirators who believe in the mission like it's a religion and each other like they've got matching tattoos. Welcome to the founder's paradox. Peter Thiel starts the riot with a straight shot to the skull. Every company is a culture, and if you're outsourcing that to consultants and HR slide decks, your business is dead before launch. All those startup perks, the sushi chefs, the meditation rooms, the beanbags scattered like tech bro landmines, mean absolutely nothing if you haven't built a culture. And the culture isn't a side dish, it's the company. You don't install it after you hire people, you recruit for it. The PayPal mafia didn't just happen, it was engineered with obsessive intent, selecting for raw loyalty and creative savagery over Ivy League polish and resume puffery. That's how 7 of those people went on to create billion-dollar companies. Not because of how smart they were, but because they trusted each other enough to bleed together under fire. Thiel isn't impressed by professionalism. Professionalism is for McKinsey drones and pitch deck poets. You don't build revolutions with people clocking in and out like they're scanning barcodes. You build it with outcasts, zealots, and psychos who are so irrationally dedicated to the cause they'd rather work for equity than take your 6-figure offer. Why? Because equity is alignment. Anyone choosing stock over salary isn't just working for you, they're betting on the future with you. But alignment only gets more complicated. There's ownership, possession, and control. And if those 3 aren't managed with near dictatorial clarity, the entire machine eats itself from the inside. Startups don't die because of competitors. They die from autoimmune diseases, petty infighting, diluted visions, and ego-driven land grabs. Most founder disputes are just polite code for a civil war. That's why Thiel hammers one truth into the skull of every entrepreneur he mentors. If you get the founding wrong, you can't fix it later. And this leads to the paradox. Founders have to be insane enough to believe they can bend reality, but sane enough to not believe their own myth. Steve Jobs pulled this off with a sort of chaotic genius. Bill Gates did it with calculated control. But then you've got cautionary tales like Howard Hughes, who started as an icon and ended a prisoner of his own madness. The same extremism that makes founders visionary can also make them volatile. Society worships them one day, crucifies them the next. Ask Elon Musk, who cycles from Iron Man to supervillain faster than a Dogecoin tweet. The problem isn't just that founders are extreme, it's that they're expected to be extreme and then punished for it. The paradox gets even sharper. To build something great, you need cult-like loyalty. But to maintain it, you have to avoid becoming a cult leader. That's where most founders lose the plot. They start drinking their own Kool-Aid, surrounding themselves with yes men and ego fluffers, mistaking Twitter clout for product traction. And when the myth collapses, so does the company. Thiel's answer? Don't chase worship. Build alignment. Don't demand blind loyalty. Create shared obsession. And shared obsession means recruiting like your life depends on it, because it does. You're not just hiring for skill, you're hiring for fit, you're hiring for tribe. Why would the 20th employee join your startup instead of Google? Not for the money, not even for the equity, but because your mission is so specific, so personal, so weirdly right, that it feels like a calling. That's how cults are built, not with perks, with purpose. Thiel even makes the case that the best startups are one step removed from actual cults. Cults are dangerous because they're fanatically wrong, but startups, the good ones, are fanatically right about something everyone else has missed. If your startup isn't weird, obsessive, and borderline fanatical, it's dead. Better to be called a mafia than a management consultancy, because at least the mafia wins. So here's the uncomfortable truth. If your founder doesn't seem a little unhinged, if your early team isn't abnormally tight-knit, if your culture could be transplanted to a bank or a law firm and still make sense, you're not building a startup. You're LARPing one. And no one gets rich pretending to start a company. They only get rich building one that's too intense, too risky, and too mission-driven for the sane to touch. Key takeaway: founders are not managers, they're myth makers. The companies that change the world are not built by balanced people. They're built by obsessive, contradictory leaders who build tribes, not org charts. Favorite quote: the best startups might be considered slightly less extreme kinds of cults. The biggest difference is that cults tend to be fanatically wrong about something important. People at a successful startup are fanatically right about something those outside it have missed. From stagnation to singularity. You know what's scarier than a global financial meltdown? Scarier than AI wiping out humanity? Scarier than TikTok therapists diagnosing you with chronic hustle burnout? It's this: a future where absolutely nothing changes. A future where we're so obsessed with playing it safe, so comfortable bathing in lukewarm mediocrity that we forget how to build, invent, or even imagine. That's the real apocalypse. Eternal sameness dressed up as progress. Let's make something perfectly clear. The biggest threat to your future isn't collapse, it's stagnation. Peter Thiel doesn't whisper that idea. He screams it between the lines. He's not worried we'll go out with a bang. He's worried we'll fade into irrelevance while scrolling the same feed on slightly thinner iPhones for the next 30 years. And look, most people are out here planning like the future's gonna be some soft remix of the present. More global trade, more startups that aren't really startups, more apps that let you split rent with your cat. Meanwhile, we're sitting on a ticking time bomb of geopolitical instability, collapsing trust in institutions, and a global economy running on autopilot. The world isn't trending toward utopia, it's coasting toward a cliff. Thiel frames the possibilities as four futures, endless repetition of boom and bust, a boring plateau where we all just try to be the next mediocre LinkedIn success story, a collapse so brutal that there's no coming back, or, get this, actual innovation that blows the past into oblivion. Guess which one he wants? Yeah, it's the last one, but it's also the one that demands the most from us, because the future won't build itself. The singularity isn't some tech bro fairy tale that magically arrives because a TED Talk said it would. It's a choice. It's a fight. And most people aren't showing up. We've been tricked, conned into thinking that progress is this inevitable force, that Moore's law will save us, that ChatGPT will do the work, that disruption is something you can schedule like a dentist appointment. Newsflash, if you're sitting around waiting for innovation to arrive, you're not just lazy. You're complicit in your own obsolescence. Thiel goes full philosopher here. He brings in Nick Bostrom and four possible outcomes for civilization. One of them is what we're living, a drab, overmanaged, globally synchronized world, sleepwalking into extinction while congratulating itself for hitting quarterly goals. But there's hope. Barely. The singularity. Real technological transcendence, the leap from good to unthinkably great. But don't get too romantic about it. This isn't a sci-fi movie where Elon Musk saves us at the last minute in a titanium spacesuit. This is the part where you ask yourself, what are you building? What are you creating that didn't exist yesterday? What future are you choosing? Because if the answer is nothing, then you're part of the problem. And here's the kicker. That bland, safe world you think you're preserving. It doesn't actually exist. Without breakthroughs, without risk, the global economic machine doesn't just stall, it detonates. Slowly, quietly, but catastrophically. When everyone's fighting over the same pie with no plan to bake a new one, that's not peace. It's a countdown to chaos. So yes, the future could be incredible, but it could also be nothing. It's up to us to build the things that make it different. And better. Thiel doesn't care if you like him. He's not here for your feelings. He's here to punch you in the face with the reality that if you're not aiming for 0 to 1, you're just another lemming running laps in a hamster wheel labeled progress. So what now? Think, act, building. Not later, now. Because if you won't, someone else will. And they might not build a future you like. Key takeaway. The biggest risk is not destruction, it's inertia. The only future worth living in is the one we create through conscious, courageous innovation. Favorite quote, our task today is to find singular ways to create the new things that will make the future not just different, but better, to go from 0 to 1. Conclusion, you made it this far, which probably means two things. 1, you're hungry for more than just recycled startup fluff. And 2, you're pissed. Pissed at how much time you've wasted chasing trends, following blueprints, and believing the lie that playing it safe was somehow strategic. Good, because 0 to 1 wasn't written to make you feel better. It was written to make you wake up. Thiel doesn't hold your hand. He slaps the delusion out of your mouth and tells you to stop being one of the sheep grazing on surface level innovation. If this breakdown hit a nerve, it's because deep down you know you've been thinking too small, moving too slow, and building what's already been built over and over again. Now here's the real talk. Watching a summary video isn't going to change your life. Clipping quotes for your Twitter feed isn't going to turn you into a founder. You want the fire? Go get it from the source. Read the book. Buy the book. Don't pirate it. Don't wait for a top 10 lessons from Peter Thiel post on Instagram. Own it. Mark it up. Reread the chapters that made you uncomfortable. Sit with the parts that made you angry. That's the point. Because you don't get to go from 0 to 1 by sitting on the sidelines nodding along. You get there by thinking differently, acting boldly, and refusing to settle for a future that looks just like the past, only with better UX. So if you're serious, and I mean dead serious, about building something that matters, stop watching, stop scrolling, stop pretending, and start reading. You already know the book's name. Go get it. And then build the future, or step aside for someone who will.